Hi all, welcome to another Chess24 Banter Blitz. Okay, I just want to quickly show you this premium code. This voucher code Kingscrusher gives you 15% off, and you can challenge me and any other streamers. You just turn up 20 to 30 minutes beforehand, send the challenge off, and we have it in our challenges ready to challenge you. So it's a great system there for challenging, if you want to take advantage of that. Okay, let's go on to the first challenge. Just waiting for my preview to come up as well. Okay, I think it has. So I'll go on to the challenge view. And the first challenge this morning, I hope audio is okay and everything. Please let me know. So Great Blunder. So hi all. Let me know if audio, everything is okay. I'll try English opening today a little bit, I think. So trying to control that sensitive, or not sensitive, central light square with the English opening. This sometimes, I can sometimes play bishop g5. I'll keep an option open with this pawn at the moment. Let's keep an option open for that. It's right now with that. I think I will play e4 because as if black wants to play d5. Queen d7 I think runs into knight g5. I'd get that light square bishop because there's no bishop h3 there. Alright, so I think getting this is valuable in some respect. If bishop g4 f3, so bishop h3 I can just take that now. So I think this is a little mini win here to get this light square bishop. This mini accumulation of advantages, as Steinitz has mentioned, if you can accumulate small advantages. But it's up to me to prove, really, is it a small advantage? I'm wondering h4, but there's knight h5, so maybe just this for a moment, because this bishop's probably better there, tying black down to e6. Oh, yes. Okay, I'll put my volume down a little bit on my own speaker here. Okay, so this light square bishop, how important is it? Well, first of all, I'm thinking this pinned pawn is useful. Well, knight d5, but he's bypassed that. So I'll create this battery for bishop h6. Possibly in this position, I'm thinking f4 because I'm covering that g4 square as well. Got to watch out for knight takes f3. Maybe this is a good safety, just in case that knight's a nuisance. Now I'm wondering f4. Okay, if I play f4, then maybe this rook's not doing anything over there. a4 runs into knight b3. What about just rook f2 and rook af1? I think this might be a good plan. I mean, it seems a logical thing to me to sort of double the rooks there. If we look at other plans, sometimes, you know, I'd be expanding on the queen side. I don't think there's any point here in expanding on the queen side. It's a long way off doing any structural damage. Okay, so let's just reinforce this f file with rook f2. So I just want to double the rooks. So this knight on d4 remains a nuisance, I've got to say. If I take it off at knight e2, there might be f5 later. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to give up that bishop. Okay. So I'm wondering, maybe g4, g5, bishop g4, h4, h5. That sort of plan has sprung into mind for some reason. Anytime I ever play f5, he gets the e5 square. So I'm wondering this plan instead. Is it controversial? g5, bishop g4, h4. Is it a bit too... is it creating too many weaknesses? The g5 pawn is held by the queen on d2. I'm just wondering about this plan, how effective could it be? If you think in terms of structural damage, remember I said earlier there's nothing over here, but if I have h4, h5, hg, there's an isolated pawn all of a sudden. So I'm taking the 2-pawn chain island into a 1-pawn chain island. So from that point of view, it's a pretty long-range plan, but I am thinking bishop g4, h4, h5. And then to take and then maybe use the h file with rook h1. I don't know how weakening this is. If e5, I think there's f5. Okay, I can still pursue this plan. I think that knight's just waiting for the e5 square. If I ever play f5, there's that juicy e5 square. So I'm pursuing this plan, h5. It's a structural plan. One of the, if you might have heard of the minority attack, one of the basic, more fundamental things about minority attack is to try and inflict some structural damage. So here, okay, if I play knight g3, h5, have I achieved anything? Well, maybe in the future f5 would be more effective. If I take on h6, it doesn't seem very good here. Actually, well, maybe actually rook h1, maybe. But then there's e5, it's going into that self-pin. Don't want to go into that horrible pin with my queen on d2. So what about just knight g3 for a moment? Let's see, h5, okay, at least there's no pin here. It's an upgrade on that. If e5, that blunts out the e5 square. So f5 without giving e5 for a piece is good. Now I can try and use the h file maybe. Okay, so the operative word is maybe. I think a3 might be handy for knight b4. Knight b4 is poised to do some damage here, I've just noticed. Let's try and address that in advance. Oh, I've just noticed something else. Rook takes, there was bishop e6 there. The queen, yeah, if the king had to take, I could have gained a tempo on the h file. There is a battle of nuances going on in these variations. What positional edges could be achieved? If the king was more exposed there, it's worth checking out. Right, I'm thinking e6 is vulnerable. b4 might be actually a good idea now. If ever dc e5 and I get knight e4, knight f6. If ever bc, then that b file is another road for my rooks. This b file, or maybe the queen's come into the queen side. Okay, the exchanges here, interesting. Now there's no entry point for the queen. Do I want to keep a pair of rooks on? I'm thinking rook b1, bc, just to check the versatility of my opponent's position. But he could play rook h4 and queen h7. I don't want that danger, that exposure. So I'm going to take here, I think, and leave it a bit more simple. Queen h4, bishop h3 at the moment. If I played this, I've got a b file to play with now. Okay, the time's running low though. Okay, this means I can blunt the bishop and play knight e4 to f6. That was one of the objectives of bc, either the b file or getting e5. That blunts the bishop. Bishop can reroute. What I've got to be aware of is queen h4, I think. I'll try and seal up the h4 square. So if I can play knight e4 to d6, but without queen h4, so having the cake and eating it, as they sometimes say, is an expression. You try and get an advantage without the disadvantage. Now knight f6 here, or knight d6. I'm wondering knight d6 seems to just win that e6 pawn tactically. This is cool. I'm just looking out for these entry points. I think I can take here and leave that bishop blocked in. And I just want to just exchange the queens off, because I think this ending is going to be favourable to me. And well, having that h file is nice. f5 would be dropping off next. I think if I can get the queens off, I think this is pretty non-controversial now. I can just march my king to e4 and then play f5. I believe this is very, very comfortable. 2 pawns up. I just glide the stop b5. Pawns on light squares is good against the bishop. The bishop's never going to be able to attack these guys. So I think I bring the king in to e4 and then play f5. Alright, thanks for the game, Great Blunder. Okay. Fuchs Riedel. Okay, let's see. Fuchs Riedel. Excuse my pronunciation. Let's try knight f6. Okay, a sigh of relief as the London system has not been employed, which I'm yet to get a few books from Amazon on because I'm sick of losing to the London system. Okay, anyway, no, it's London system style, but with c4 it's okay. I can bear it. I believe. It's when that rock in the centre set up. It's a nuisance. I don't know what to do. I'm thinking I shouldn't move any pawns and create any weaknesses of the last move in general, but I tend to do that against the London system. But anyway, we're in an unusual territory here, actually. Why not? E5, d takes. There's a tactic on d3 here. There's a loose piece on d3, which this queen can hit. Now, okay, there is bishop takes e5 though, knight takes, but then the knight is loose, rook e8, the knight moves, and there's queen takes d3. I think, yeah, this has gone off the beaten track a bit, because this usually isn't a tactical element, I think, a loose bishop on d3. Now, it is possible to do a classic maneuver here. What I consider it classic to get into that d4 square. If you look at this, if I can... for a moment, I'll reinforce e5, but if you look at this structure, there's an Achilles heel, the d4, and whilst black can control d5, white can't control d4, and there's an implied plan here, which a lot of King's Indian players use a lot with great effect. Knights, maneuvering a knight to d4, like knight c5 to e6 to d4, or even f4, because that could open up that bishop. I will play that first move, because it is hitting the bishop. I can neglect this for a moment. But then my e5 pawn is vulnerable here. Knight h5 is a loose piece. Knight takes e5, but maybe knight takes g3. But let's have a look at bishop takes e5. I think that just wins a pawn. So I've got to tread carefully, actually, with regard to e5. In fact, I'm wondering... Okay, maybe knight d7. I'm wondering if this is a mistake when I play. Knight d7, though, and I could still have this maneuver, perhaps, to go into either f4 or d4. So knight e6, and then maybe c6, queen e7. The knight's got an option for either d4 or f4. So let's have a look at this. Queen e7, c6. Now either knight d4 or knight f4. Now either way would extend the bishop, actually. If I ever took with this pawn, then I'm extending the bishop on that diagonal. If I took like that, then it's one square, and it's it's a dangerous pawn in the center, I think. So, but I think actually knight f4 takes the vote here, rather than knight d4. The problem with the pawn on d4, it can be easily blockaded. I think this is better. I'm going to play this way, because I like the bishop. I like getting the e5 square. Okay, I can clamp down on... I can take this pawn as well, but that's a bit greedy. However, it does give me the c5 square. It's more than the pawn here, and there's no backfire on the pawn, it seems, that easily. So I think I will take that pawn. It's a bit greedy, but if I can just return to base and then play knight c5, I think this should be okay. So if I play queen e7, knight c5, there's another pawn there. Am I going to be super greedy? Okay, I'm going to take it. I'm being super greedy. Now, this often doesn't end well, taking pawns in general. One has to be very, very careful. Okay, especially in Blitz, the power of the initiative is amplified already. It's much more harder to defend positions in Blitz. But here, I don't think the dynamic play is there yet to damage me too much. So I'll blunt that c file. E5 is okay. This bishop's blunted. Okay, I think I'll take that. And then maybe b6. I've got my loose rooks at the moment. Well, they're not connected. Can I afford b6? I'm hoping b6. You know what? Bishop b3 looks a little bit scary. Okay, c5 for a moment. There is a tactical idea of knight e2 if only the rook wasn't e1, but it's worth noting these things. Bishop d5, there might be bishop b7. Yeah, this is a liability. This fork, potential fork, it just needs a bit of tipping over the balance to get that fork. So one might think of deflecting the rook away somehow from e1. Okay, this opens up the bishop. And the queen is hanging. It wasn't just positional. Okay, thanks for the game, folks. Thanks. All right. Now a mighty player who I've occasionally managed to give a good game to. Let's hope today. I don't know. The English opening. I can't mess around with b3. I just played c5. I think I've just ruined the game. That was a mouse slip. Okay, alright. It's an unusual gambit. It's an unusual gambit, to say the least. This looks like a Smith-Morrow gambit or something. No, I wouldn't try this one at home. Okay, I seem to have... I don't know, there's a position here anyway to play. It reminds me of something. I'm not sure what. What does it remind me of? Some sort of French defence, actually. It does remind me of a French defence. Let's take here and try and make the best of things. If I can keep a strong point on e5. A strong point on e5. Now, mouse slips are a major thing in blitz chess. And I did move my mouse mat earlier. I tried to actually make preparation for the mouse today. And it still let me down. Okay. So queen h5. Actually, I don't know. It seems a little bit dangerous, this position. Queen h5. What's going on here? I think I've totally flummoxed my opponent. I don't know. This position seems too good for the likes of me to have for an accidental pawn loss. Okay, so if I play queen h5, g6, queen h6, I'll be holding the bishop on f4. If I can swing a rook somehow, I'm thinking rook b1. Okay, the bishop on f4 remains hanging. Ef, knight f6, queen h4. Looks like a position where it's a little bit dodgy. That is it better to keep the e5 pawn? Just wondering. Or is it better to open up this bishop? Ef, knight f6. As an example, queen h4, knight e4. Well, that may be... No, there isn't queen e7. Knight e4... D takes... No, I'm not sure about this at all. Either ef... It looks pretty dodgy. Queen h4 after. Okay. I'm going to go with the bishop possibility. But yeah, it's a horrible self-pin here. However, I don't know if I can kick this queen away. She can go to d4. Okay, there is this. Now queen g4 here, I end up losing a piece. My queen is attacked as well. No, I think this is wrong, because actually c3 is dropping. c3 is dropping. c3 is dropping. Queen h5, rook takes f4, queen g4, knight takes c3. In that position, bishop e5. Nope. This does look as though I'm losing a piece here. Yeah, no, what I didn't factor in was losing the piece on c3. Unless there's a way... No, I don't think this is good. This is much more crushing than I imagined. I'm going to have to resign here. Well played. Yeah. Very tough very tough player. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, commutator. Okay, the commutator. So I'm playing this English Opening again without the C5 gambit. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, yeah. Trying to, because the pawns. One of the ideas is to try and control D5. Anyway, you usually want to move that pawn away anyway, unless there's a really good reason. So I'm trying to control the central D5 as one of the themes here today of using this English Opening. So let's see, H3. King H2. It looks like a Botvinnik system. Because it probably is a Botvinnik system style of play, where Mikhail Botvinnik used to play this sort of stuff with white sometimes. But actually a lot of his openings look pretty solid and amazing in some respects, actually, quite often. So let's see, Queen D2, maybe there's Bishop H6, Rook E1 for D4 might be, just wondering really, ED Knight D4, yeah, maybe. If my Rook was on E1, then maybe D4, ED Knight D4, my Bishop's holding E4, I'm hitting C6. One aspect of that structurally, hang on, D4 Knight takes E4. I can't get to that position, but I was going to say one aspect is this pawn on D6. It's slightly more vulnerable. I think I'll play it now because E4 is no longer double attacked. If I can have this pawn as a target, I've often lost games with black, to be honest, with a D6 pawn target simply against this structure. I've lost games with no counterplay whatsoever over the board. I vividly remember some. Yeah, this structure is sometimes, I don't think, there's a reason why this particular structure isn't usually that popular for black at the Super GM though. I think they like the Slav fixed structures rather, because this kind of liability on D6, I think statistically for most games that I've seen, it often doesn't end well with a D6 liability like this. Even though sometimes, black gets counterplay and stuff, quite often white can shut down the perks of this structure. I mean, clearly there's a perk. If that perk can be shut down, and I've had this played against me, basically you try and shut down the perk, the advantage of black's structure, and you just simply pile up the pressure on D6. It's unpleasant. It can be very unpleasant for black. The liberating D5 probably needs to be factored in because it opens up this diagonal against G3, and in conjunction with Knight H5, Bishop E5, I mean that could be dangerous. So let's see, Knight C2, and try and avoid D5 disasters. So Knight C2, and then it starts to tie down a few black pieces. So if I played Knight C2, then maybe the thing is Bishop F4 is Knight H5, but if I played, for example, Knight C2 and G4, G4 here, there's D5, right? That's well timed in a way. However, okay, so Knight C2, there's definitely D5 on the cards. This might be a case of playing F4, and if Knight F6 to move the bishop back to hold E4. Yeah, I think this might be a case of F4 here. So that D5 I can play, I think possibly CD and E5 to blunt the bishop. As long as, so E4 is not hanging here. This is against deliberating D5. So if I got to play, for example, okay, Bishop F2 here as an example. I'm hoping D5 is out of the question. It's slow management of black's, trying to neutralize black's advantage in the structure and try and slowly go for the D6 pawn. So Knight C2 is hitting D6. And when there's one retreating move, it starts to be unpleasant. Okay, so here, one retreating move starts to be unpleasant. I've had this with black, really. I just find these positions unpleasant. With black, I try and avoid, if possible, this sort of thing. There might even be e5, because if you imagine bishop f8, e5, d takes, there's bishop takes, pawn takes, there's queen takes, d7, potentially. I mean, potentially that's a loose bishop on d7 with this e5 break. Maybe not here, actually. The knight's holding d7. That was wrong. The knight's holding d7, but you can start to see if black starts retreating. Let's see, g4 might be possible for bishop g3 as well. So g4 here. There's a possibility of bishop g4. I'm not sure that's that sound here. So it might be the case that I can play bishop g3, which yeah, is trying to manage black's generation of counterplay. Okay, now I've played a similar piece sack in desperation myself within this structure as black, so I know the feeling of wanting to break out. Okay, so rook e3 for doubling rooks here seems an idea. Now d6 is a long way from being an issue, though. With this piece sack, yeah, an emphasis has changed. It's a long way from being an issue. Instead, okay, I'm doing this doubling now. Right, I was trying to be against that d5 earlier. Now knight takes f4 is maybe a good move, actually, as long as like there's bishop e5. This self pin isn't that bad, maybe, unless you know, e5 is not that hot either. I think I'll just go away from this for a moment. Bishop f1. Yeah, no, I think black's generating something here. Queen f2, queen h5, king g1. I hope. I'll simplify. I'm thinking d6. I'm hoping this is okay. Okay, there's a bit of a... Oh, if the rook swings in, it's going to get really dangerous. So how about... Okay, d7. No, d7 he just takes that pawn. I think some counterplay has been proven here. Bishop takes, rook takes, maybe rook g3. But the time, time situation is bad there. Okay, thanks for that, commentator. Okay, Cobra. So I'm playing the English opening again today. But I'm thinking that structure, you know, can sometimes be avoided, by the way, by waiting for white to take on e5 so you can take and get rid of the pawn on d6. Sometimes it's worth considering how the structure could be avoided. Because that process, once it begins, of getting rid of the advantage of black structure, that e-file pressure, leaves you with a pawn your pieces start getting tied down to. And I know that from experience of in over the board. Some miserable games I've had with that structure with black. Okay, so let's see. Okay, right, so this... I haven't exchanged. This is a bit of a Slav gambit sort of thing at the moment. It might be possible for black to take. And again, I'm making it a gambit style. I'm going to give that pawn up. because sometimes I feel it gets a fun game for white. That e4 becomes sometimes possible with e5. Now, there's a philosophical detection here. You can sometimes detect the opponent's style of not wanting to create too much dynamic play. So that's very cautious, not taking this pawn. So that emphasis is probably interesting to note psychologically if you're in an over-the-board game, if you're playing a cautious, solid player. I think any stylistic useful conclusion there's classic recipes against a particular style of play. So let's see, if black doesn't want to create too much play for me, I might have to grind black down with a long-term strategy. There is a certain dark square weaknesses here in black structure. And this seems out of place, actually, bishop e4 to me. It seems out of place. Although there isn't a pawn, say, on f5, there's quite a few pawns on light squares. The dark squares, c5 and e5, are going to be interesting with this structure, even though there's no pawn on f5 to make it like true, wholesome, Dutch stone wall structure. It's nearly there. It's weak on the dark squares a bit, I think. I'm wondering, just to let that happen, I think CD or even A3 here. Okay, I'm going to let that happen. Okay, that's interesting. So structurally, a lot has happened now. A lot. This G file might be useful. I've got a clamp on E5 at the moment. For the G file, yeah, I'll play this and Rook G1 and maybe E5. So again, okay, knight G4 is also a dangerous. Knight E4 is dangerous. Maybe knight E5 here, and consider taking on E4 and F3. On knight G4, well, yeah. I think this simplifies things a bit. Another possibility is to slowly kick the knight. This might be better, actually, more sensible, to play Queen C1 and slowly kick the knight. If my knight's kicked, knight D3, I believe. If I slowly kick the knight, mind you, Queen H4, Queen H4. How dangerous is that? That probably is fairly dangerous, Queen H4 coming in. That's a tactical consideration, and it's an important one, probably. Maybe there's Queen E3. Okay, let's see. Queen H4, Queen E3. So I'm thinking Queen E3 here. Any F3 does knight G3. Yeah. So F3 is ruled out at the moment. Alright, so knight F3 here, the queen moves, knight D3, knight D3 holds F2 again. It might be a good idea to kick this knight slowly with King G1 and F3. I think I'll do that. So F3 without knight G3. Yeah, I think that G-file plan has been put on hold significantly. Okay, so I think F3 here. gf, queen f4, knight f4, knight d2 needs to be checked out. Well, knight e6. fg here, I'm getting that e5 square, except there's knight takes c4 here. So maybe c5, knight c4, queen f2, queen f2, king f2, g takes, knight takes f4. Just want to make sure I'm not losing bits around the shop. So maybe c5 or cd. Now cd might be better, and then fg, and then fg, knight e5. I think that might be better here. Trying to get this e5 square. Let's see, I might snap off on d3. So I'm thinking, okay, if knight c4, there's nuisance moves. Alright, if I get this e5 square, that's bishop d3. Alright, he's given me this e5 knight. I'm wondering about that. If that was necessary, he could have taken on d3. There's a certain gambling element with moving these pawns to attack me. It's the sort of thing I indulge in all the time in different aspects of gambling in chess, whether that's time odds or pawn moves. But it makes for exciting games. But here I'm in the position of the unusual position of the positional player, I think. So just trying to. I was going to use the word parasitically exploit the weakened squares. I think I don't know if that's a fair thing to say, but yeah, it feels as though I'm parasitically exploiting dark squares here, which he's just given me on a plate. And I haven't done a thing. Okay, so knight g4. I haven't done a thing here, and I'm getting a good position, which is fine, I think, as a style of play. So queen e5. I've just got a nice knight on e5. Queen e5, knight e5. I don't think there's any attack in the foreseeable future after this. And because of the vacuum of weaknesses now, black has to watch out for knight g6 maybe at some point and other stuff. I don't think this is a pleasant position for black. Okay. Alright. Okay. Thanks, Cobra. Thanks so much. Okay, Dimitri, I think there's a different adjective I have to find. Exploiting, taking advantage of, not doing anything but exploiting weaknesses. I don't know, I need an adjective for that. I don't know what it is, the adjective, but anyway, maybe it's just called provoking weaknesses. And I've just played e4. Okay, so knight f3, let's try this knight f3. Now, I had this friendly club blitz, which everyone was keen to be on increment against me. I don't know why, but they were playing this Maroczy bind against me endlessly, and I was having these miserable positions. So I thought I'd try and inflict the same sort of torture on my opponent today with this Maroczy bind business, avoiding all the fun of the Sicilian defence. Okay. If I can exchange off that light square bishop, it's not going to happen that easily, is it? Getting that exchange of the light square bishop. Can I play knight d5 here to try and get it in? If you have a took, I take it on d7. I'm weakening some light squares in my opponent's position. Will I have any opportunity here in tapping into them? Probably not. Right, probably not. I would need to preserve the knight and take this knight off with my bishop to try and get into the light squares like f5. So if we look at this, knight h2, bishop e3, bishop d4, queen h5. The problem is, if he has a pawn on d4, there's no knight e3 to f5. If you imagine trying to get a knight to f5, it's a bit tricky here. And in the meantime, rook's getting c4, blasting down the c file. However, it might be worth pursuing this. This option is just better for black, this cd. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to pretend as though I can get into the light squares later. Now he could play f5. f4, rook c1. Let's see, f4, f5. Is this mostly harmless? Any f4, f5 is going to pounce with bishop g5. Any queen d2 to rule out bishop g5 might be interesting. f5 could be possible for black. What about just queen h5? There's f5. Any knight g4, there's f5. What really makes it comfortable for black is this knight on d4 here, clearly. If I played f4, f5, yeah, this is just comfortable for black, this position right now. I got this ambitious plan, but it's difficult to realize. In fact, he's trying to weaken me on corresponding dart squares. Funny. Okay, so queen h5 here, though. If I could prompt the doubling of pawns, which I don't think is going to happen. Oh, no, knight c2 wins material. Oh, I get it. Knight c2 wins material. Unless that knight's trapped after. Rook d1. No, hang on. Rook c1, knight e3, rook f3. The knight, is it trapped? It might be. I hope so. Please let it be trapped. Attacking d3, okay. Forking again. a3, knight d3 is a significant pawn. I can let the knight win a2, and in the meantime try and whip up some attack over here with knight g4 and rook f6. Rook h6, g takes, knight f6. Yeah, I think I'd go with that. So knight g4 and rook f6. And then rook takes h6, there's knight f6. So rook f6 here. Rook 8, rook takes h6. What he's created is dynamic f-file here, by the way, in that transaction we just had. Winning the a2 pawn but allowing this attack seems a bit unwise to me, because this f-file didn't even exist for me as a possibility before. That's a short-range tactic transaction, but giving me what seems to be a phenomenal attack here on a longer scope. Multiple move scope. So rook f1, rook h6, king h7, rook h6. This looks devastating, potentially. Rook takes h6. Looks devastating. Now I might be wrong. Maybe I should, on the rook move, f7's neglected, right? So maybe rook f1, knight d3, rook f7 looks even more crushing with knight h6 and queen g6. So let's see. Maybe I safely just double the rooks here and ask about f7 rather than rook h6. This could be a little bit controversial. Rook h6, king f8, rook h8, king e7. I think it's easier just to keep the king hemmed in without running away with rook f1. So let's see, rook f1, knight d3, rook f7. Queen moves, knight takes h6. All the pieces are in full attacking force here. Now rook h6, queen h6 threatens knight f6. If f6, rook f6 with the idea of rook g6. This looks too crushing now. So there's immediately the idea of knight f6. If I just want my material to get the queen, I think that might be good enough. Queen h6 is also appetizing for knight f6 mate. Now if we factor in defensive resources here, at minimum, I think I'm doing more damage with queen h6. Am I? Hold on. Queen h6, queen e7, knight f6. I'm still winning the queen there. So maybe, I'm hoping this is okay. f5, knight f6. I take the queen and rook f5. I get another pawn. f6. I just get another pawn basically, I think, rather than going with knight f6 immediately. So I'm threatening knight f6 mate, and that's pretty forcing. Knight f6 mate. So I think the f pawn has to move here, basically. If we look at this, I think the f pawn has to move. Or maybe not. Okay. Rook f5 to g5 now. Looks very good. Now f6 again is possible. Rook f6, rook g7 is an example. So how about rook h5, rook g7, queen... I pick up this rook, which is loose. I think rook h5 might be the way to go. Because if king f7, queen h7, pick up that rook, otherwise I'm picking up that rook. So let's see. Rook g7, queen h8, just pick up that rook. King f7, queen h7, pick up that rook. I think this is stronger than rook f6 because I'm thinking rook g7 is a defensive resource and I don't pick up any rook. Right, thanks for the game, Dimitar. Night Driver. I remember Kit, the film program Night Driver. That was good. That was a great program. Cool car. Okay, let's see. Knight f6. Let's try a Banker gambit. So a6, b5, maybe. So this structure is pretty exciting, but you can get permanently space disadvantage and losing position quite easily out of it, generally speaking. If white plays all the cards right and neutralizes all the counterplay, white ends up with a space advantage, potentially. This is just a recipe I'm following. Knight e8 to c7 is just a standard recipe. And it looks pointless to play knight c7. I know. It looks absolutely pointless. Pardon me. Don't know what's happened there. Okay, b6. I'm going to accept the weakened a pawn. Accepting the weakened a pawn for a bit of piece play here. I remember I had a load of Blitz games with Andrew Webster, who became later an IM in this. Like, I took some with this dynamic. He clamped down with a5. I did this. I remember some of the games. I mean, vaguely. And I got some counterplay, and there were Blitz, so I think that's relevant to mention. So yeah, I mean, the positional players will try and relish this a6 pawn weakness, and quite often they're right. It's just losing for black structurally. Okay, so, but anyway, I'm just working on the piece play here. So knight e5. Okay, so bishop f5 is e4, I guess. Knight g4, it might be worth considering here. Yeah, I'll go with that. So bishop f5, e4, bishop d4. I'm not sure what I'm gaining there. Probably nothing, so I'm going to move this bishop back. Having the bishop, I think, is a bit of positional security, though. This bishop is potentially, it's controlling quite a few squares. The a6 pawn isn't an immediate liability. Okay, so rook e8 and queen b8. If I just carry on this plan of trying to make use of this temporary piece play, should we call it, queen b8, the c7 knight is protecting a6 still, so piling on a little bit of pressure. I could play king f8. I've seen this move in Banker Gambit theory, king f8. Or maybe it's just something engines come up with to protect e7, so you can get on with using the rook without worrying about e7. So queen b7, king f8 to leave the bishop on the diagonal as well. Rook b8 to put a bit of pressure on b2. Rook b1, and then maybe things are looking a little bit rosy here. If white is getting pacified to b2, so so king f8, rook b8, triple. Okay, this is the plan. Let's work out how good it is. Triple on b2. And if white starts to pacify on b2, then this a6 pawn isn't such a big deal, probably. So rook b1. Let's see. What can I do with that after rook b1? Doesn't appear to be much. Let's see. There's an exchange sack. I've got an exchange sack available. Rook takes b3. That's a bit dodgy though, isn't it? Probably don't need to do that. I've had another tactical thought on king here. That bishop f5 e4 does open that diagonal. If I'd sacked on h3 later, that looks like devastation. In fact, slyly play queen c8 with the idea of bishop f5 e4, bishop takes h3, with the idea of queen takes h3 and bishop d4 check, with the idea bishop f2 queen g3, for example. That looks dangerous. So bishop f5 e4 opening up the diagonal, then bishop h3, g takes, queen takes, king g1, bishop d4. This is very sly stuff on this side of the board, where my opponent probably didn't expect anything whatsoever to be happening. I've switched attention totally to the king side here. So bishop g4 with the idea bishop takes f3, queen h3. Okay, h6. Okay, idea knight f3, bishop takes h3, knight f3, bishop takes f3, queen h3, queen h2, queen h2. Well, I think this is good. Unless there's something devastating with the knight, I should do this. I think b3 is dropping. If queen h2, king h2, rook takes b3. So combining attack on both sides of the board here. Well, there's bishop d4 here. This would seem dangerous for the c3 knight as well. Queen g3, king f1, queen f2, bishop f2. Well, b3 drops after. There's also queen f3 here. These are very, very good options. Queen f3 looks good. Bishop d4, king moves, queen takes f4 with check, so that's good. Bishop d4 here, yeah, it's pinning the queen. Alright, thanks for the game, Night Driver. On this occasion, you know, a6 can be losing. It depends how the counterplay is managed. To often bring out structural weaknesses, you need to manage the counterplay, otherwise that's really dangerous sometimes. Okay, so This looks like what I call wet lettuce. I had this game in London Classic. I played this, got nothing out of the opening, and I swore I'd never play this ever again. This setup with white, because it doesn't have any any attacking potential against the king. However, there is a however. It's kind of an acquired taste to gain space and stuff. Let me just back in back in a minute. Hold on. Okay. B5. Let's play B5 here. Knight A2 to B4 looks good here. There's a backward A7 pawn. So knight B4, rook A1. If black could win the exchange, I'm still thinking that's kind of dangerous with the queen on A1, potentially. So he could control A1 here with moving the knight. He doesn't. So A7's targeted, which means now, okay, let's go with rook A3. There's a potential doubling, but no, my queen would be a tactical liability at the moment. And if this is blunting the A file, so am I going to do some sort of exchange sack, or just going to take that knight with the bishop? Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting problem. Okay, D5. D5. Whoa. Okay, knight takes CD, bishop takes A5. This might be worth doing. I'm hoping it's worth doing. Take this knight off. Otherwise my A file is like getting nowhere. My D5 pawn's attacked. So let's see. Bishop takes, B takes, knight D2 is plausible to protect D5. Don't see where else the knight goes to protect D5. Maybe black is better here. Get this rook out the firing line. Maybe E3, D4. Queen D6 is hitting the rook. Rook A2. Okay. If I took that, it looks as though black's got a lot of play here. Unfortunately. Queen B1, rook B6, Queen A2 maybe. Maybe there's a shelter on A2. This looks, I don't know, is this going really passive? Or what? There's also this is actually a really dangerous pawn as well. Okay, hitting the rook. Rook A2. It's hitting E2 as well. Rook A2 then. This looks very unpleasant now. Rook takes bishop f1 because my knight's held. Am I hitting this guy? Do I get away with this move rook a2 or not? Is there rook e2, queen e2, bishop f1? Queen moves. Queen e8. Set b5. Queen e8 is possible there. So I think rook e2 might be plausible. Right, bishop d. Okay, bishop d3 now is threatened. If I play queen d1, like a tortoise. Okay, queen d1 like a tortoise. Okay. If needs must, queen d1. Can I play knight e4 here? So queen d2 is f5. I think I should start speeding up because my position looks lost. Okay, or try and sack the exchange here with rook b2. Just to get some dark square compensation and get rid of this menace, this pawn menace. So queen e6, rook b2, ab, queen b2, bishop d3 hits my queen. Right, again, I can try and just get rid of this before bishop d5 happens. I think I need to have rook b2. I need to have rook b2 as an option, I think. Otherwise, this is just not nice. Okay, knight g5. Where else is this knight going? There's bishop f6. Rook takes b6. Bishop takes g5. Maybe there's f4. Knight c3. Wouldn't have thought so. Bishop takes g2. Oh, this looks nasty. Also, there's bishop f6. I'm just losing material. Yep. Yeah, I'm going a piece down. I get rid of this pawn though. Oh, or rook down. Is there anything else to say? Queen f4. Any cheapos, any tactics, any tricks at all to think about? So this other rook's going. Maybe I could have taken on a3 though, about 20 seconds. I don't think he's going to make it actually. I've got a trick, knight g5. Queen h7. Don't think he's going to make it. No, not with that amount of seconds. No, it's too short on time. That's the problem. It was a great game. I mean, I think black was just better from way back here. If we have a look at this, I'm thinking black's better. As soon as I gave up the dark square bishop, I'd say white was okay here. Maybe I shouldn't have given up that bishop. Okay, it gives CD here. Oh, 94. Okay. Well, it's better there, but the way I played it... Okay, so black starts equalising. It's equal now, but I think things go really downhill after... Actually, yeah, I'm right. It seems as soon as bishop takes a5, it should be logical, actually, because I think black has the bishop pair and the passed a-pawn. I've just given black the bishop pair, passed a-pawn. It was very, very woolly, this idea to try and... The pawn was never weak. It actually became just a dangerous passed a-pawn. And black opening up the position for the bishop pair. This is just nasty, nasty position. It just gets nasty. Just black's absolutely winning here. Yeah, bishop c3, queen b7, rook takes b1. Yeah, I'm just out for tricks after that. Okay, well played. I'm just out for tricks after that. All time. Okay, well played. Autonomous. Let's try this Benoni structure again. Okay, we're into a king's engine now. 4 pawns attack. So this is the standard recipe I know about. ED and bishop g4. Waiting for h3 to play bishop f3 to weaken the dark squares. Now usually CD's play this is slightly different. There's no avalanche with e5, but what's the upside of white taking with ed? If e5 is kind of ruled out, I think it's what is the upside? Do I need to know about the upside for white here? Maybe I still play bishop g4. So still this idea of policy of dark square play. So h3 taking to try and maximize the dark square play. So a6, rook b8, b5 is also a plan here. If white plays a4, yeah, this looks as though it's totally pointless again. I appreciate that. Because white's clamped down on b5. However, with b6, which is like an overkill, we get a scenario where I have the option of b6 to have a weak a6 pawn, but b2 is exposed. You know what? I'm tempted to try it again. This structure, a6 versus b2 structure. Even my knight's not on c7 yet. There was no need to play a5. There was no way I was going to play b5. I did vaguely have a quick look at queen a5 to b4 to try and, you know, bishop f3, queen c4, that sort of plan. But that's a bit vague. I think the pawn didn't need to play a5. But the knight did a very good job in the earlier game being on c7. If white's going to double on a6. A knight on c7. Is holding a6 for a moment, as in the previous game example earlier. So we have the same sort of implied plans. I can try and treble on b2, except knight a4 wins an exchange, and then rook b4, bishop d2. Got to be careful about knight a4. Bishop f5 here, bishop d3. Okay, it's very different actually, isn't it? Tactically. Let's try this. I'll try this. And have a look at this knight a4, rook b4, bishop d2 business. Bishop f5, bishop d3, rook takes c4, exploiting the pin is possible. So if I'd have a temporary contact with c4 here, it might be tapped into with bishop f5. So that's good to know. There's a bishop f5 to the rescue, potentially. So look at this again, knight a4, rook e4, bishop d2, bishop f5. In fact, I play rook b4 here. No, knight a4 is protecting c4 with the queen. That's nonsense. Excuse that. Rook b3, or okay, hang on. There's b3, which means queen b7, knight a4, rook b3 instead. Bishop c3. Okay, I'm going to do it. There's also an exchange sack possibility of rook b4, which has been mentioned to me in one of my over-the-board games as interesting to get the c5 square. This is very interesting and almost tempting. If there's bishop c3, you know what? No, hang on, with the knight on a4, there's no knight c5. Rook b3 might be the more sensible option at this point to treble. Allow bishop c3. It might be the more sensible, yeah. So just treble. Okay. Bishop f5 is on the cards. There's no bishop d3. And there's no check. So bishop f5 is a threat. Incoming threat needs to be parried. Bishop f5 needs to be parried, it seems. White pieces don't seem entirely happy about protecting b2. So two rooks and knight seem to be protecting b2 here without any upside. There's no a6. Alright, bishop f5 here, bishop d3, queen d3. There's nothing there tactically to gain, it seems. Queen b4, rook a4. There might be rook c3 there. Queen c3 takes, rook takes b1 check. So queen b4 tempts rook a4. I think rook takes c3, rook takes b4, rook takes c2, rook takes b8, knight takes b8. So queen b4 puts a bit of pressure on white. So let's say bishop f5, bishop d3, queen takes c4. Right, I was thinking rook c3 here. Let's check this again. bc, queen b1, queen c3, rook b1, rook b4, rook c2, rook b8, knight b8. I think so. There's a lot of pressure on, yeah, that B pawn versus the A6 pawn is an interesting thing from today's session to consider, even if it is double-edged. Right, thanks, Autonomous. All right. Okay. Rubinstein, E3. So my good old friend, rest in peace, Steve Weston, used to say about the Rubinstein, as a solid thing against the Nimzo. I'm not sure about this Queen B3. I've gone off the beaten path here now. Okay. So he hasn't inflicted the dreaded structural damage. Now, I haven't castled kingside, so I might actually castle queenside here. I would welcome bishop f3 for naughty reasons of the g-file. Okay, e4 is to be considered as well. Maybe queen c2 for a moment. If I castle and then e4, e5, I'm controlling e4 at the moment. g4 loses a piece immediately. d5 loses the c5 square, but that might be okay. Oh, that's interesting. Knight d4 now. That's interesting. Why would he want to do that? Bishop g2, of course, I'll welcome the road to the king, but I'm also welcoming the possibility of just knight f5 here. Okay, if I drop back for a moment. h3, bishop g2, rook h2 might be possible. h3 so we have an opposite side castling scenario from the Nimzo Indian. I remember a game sending shockwaves. It was a Spielman game where John Spielman, Jon. Yeah, it was published in British Chess Monthly, I think, and he castled queenside. It was a dramatic attack after. So it's quite unusual, I think, to castle queenside against the Nimzo Indian. Was it? No, I think I'm talking nonsense now. Forget that. Anyway, I like opposite castled games sometimes. It depends how bad the c file is, really. Here, I mean, I don't know if black's opening up against my king that quickly, and I'm not even. Whoa, that is definitely a rule breaking move. The problem with rule breaking moves, okay, it seems as though there might be just cause in the short term. But we take this a few moves down the line, and surely fundamentally, right? Fundamentally, this is very, very, very dangerous for black. Surely. Just take this downside a few moves down the line here, like we would with pins. You know, pins, I said, short and longer term downsides. We just take this a few moves down the line. This looks like I might even have rook g6 later. Or bishop d3, bishop g6. It looks as though f5, I mean, not f5, it looks as though this pawn chain is saying, please, just hammer me, bishop d3, bishop g6. Okay, maybe it's not. Okay, rook takes h3 is a loose piece here as well, which is probably worth snapping off. Okay, thanks. Yeah, probably the panic factor of the g-file. I think it's not something. You know, even if I won with bishop g2, I think I'd feel bad about it. I actually think I'd feel bad, even if it was technically the best move. It's okay. It's like it's like driving on the wrong side of the road or something. You might get away with it in some exceptional case, but I don't know if you want to make that a habit of taking like pawns like that. It's just a bad habit. Even if you did win a game with it, I think, I don't know, that's plunging too much into the realms of technically accurate moves, which might give you bad habits. Like if you're at a weekend congress, yeah, you can play technically accurate moves in the first few rounds, but as you get more and more exhausted, it's the good habits and principles which will probably be important when you're tired. On those days you're tired, you know, you don't want your basic principled chess to be too distorted sometimes. I'm thinking the basic principle chess has got a great place in either blitz or when you're tired in long games, in long tournaments, because you know that you're shielding against the longer term downsides of what seems to be a tactically justified decision. So that, you know, those moves that look good often they do have a longer term security about them. And taking a pawn knight on g2 is to me a longer term downside, unless you're really exceptional calculator. Sometimes it's just not worth it. And even if you could do all the calculations, if you're really playing in a weekend of it, you're just going to be exhausted for later games. I think you're just going to be totally exhausted. So I think there's a case for sometimes playing principled, practical chess, trying to just shield yourself against the longer term downsides. And that includes not going into self-pins as a big example. Another big example, not going, because tactically you might justify going into a self-pin to win a pawn or two. But then a few moves down the line, you discover, well, actually you're losing a piece or whatever. So these principled ideas, they shield you, I think, from the longer term downsides, and their energy consumption, you know, is lower than being, you know, tactically trying to be tactically like a hawk all the time. Now knight e4, I lose b2, and d takes, I lose c4. That's unfortunate, isn't it? Bishop takes e4, I don't seem to lose anything. It doesn't. It loses the f5 square though, so that's unfortunate. I'll play it. It's an unfortunate thing, or not. Hang on, queen d7, knight g1. Okay, let's put the bishop back here. That was a necessary evil to take on with the piece. Yeah, I have to start doing something with this position. It's not too great at the moment. And let's see, queen d2, and try and stabilize c4 with b3, so I can play d4, d5 later, because I have got a pawn on e5 shielding e5, so that seems to be a better plan than usual d4, d5, because usually there's knight e5. So let's bear that in mind. So queen d2 seems plausible. In fact, d4 now seems plausible in one go. There's rook e8, bishop g1, and the e4 square is sunken. Okay, queen d2. I'll start with queen d2 and get these liabilities off the e file, although f4 then becomes... Okay, I need to contest the e file, I think. Maybe knight g3, just knight g3. As soon as I move this bishop back, there's bishop h6. Just knight g3 here. Conceding d4 for a moment. A little bit of d4 pressure. It doesn't matter about that at the moment. Not too much. Trying to control e4 now. So d4, knight e4. I'm controlling e4 a little bit. d4, d5. Knight a5 is nasty, isn't it? d4, d5, knight a5. Or bishop g1, bishop g1. Bishop g1. Has bishop g1 got anything going for it? I seem to be going into a self-pin of sorts here. What about rook f2 to e2 then? Although I don't like this position that much. I don't think knight d5 changes the picture. I don't think d4, d5 really does anything for my position except create even more weaknesses. I don't know what to do really. Yeah. Okay. Don't panic. Don't panic. Bishop g1. Bishop h6. I just can't get to grips with this position. Okay. I'll do this. I'll do this. It's not ideal. We got an e-file contesting battle. Knight d5, bishop d5. Maybe it's worth doing this. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Actually, I wouldn't. Maybe he doesn't want to take that. Okay, maybe he does. H3 is hanging again, potentially. What about knight f5 and bishop e4? Or queen g2 drops d3. Let's have a look at this again. Knight f5, bishop e4. Nothing is dropping off that easily, surely, there. Although my dart squares have been compromised. Let's see. Queen g2, b2. Hold b2 for a moment. It's loose. I have this looseness feeling about this position. I don't like it. I got weaknesses. My opponent's position is more compact. The structure is more compact. It's good to try and shake some negativity, though, sometimes. Okay, so to avoid being too negative, Queen G2 and F5. What about Queen G2 and F5? Try and dissolve this isolated pawn, basically, at the further expense of my dart squares. But if I can dissolve this isolated pawn, now hold on, things are looking up a little bit. Bishop h2. Oh, he's let me dissolve the isolated pawn. Feel a little bit better now. Structurally, I feel a little bit more happy structurally, getting rid of that pawn at least. And the piece play seems to have gone up as well. Okay, attacking the queen here. Well, I can take in bishop h2, rook d7. Oh, taking rook f8 wins a piece. I just noticed. Or even rook f8 here wins the queen, actually, because it takes queen b2. This is overloaded. There's rook f8 here. It's quite a nasty forcing move, actually. Yeah. It's almost like a loose piece. It's only protected by the bishop. So rook f8 does win the queen, it seems. Alright, thanks for the game, Watch. 2 minutes to go. Does anyone want to play? Okay, I think we should talk about the voucher code. So remember, it's really quiet in the summer, but this is an excellent site, Chess24, and let me just show you about the voucher code again. Now, the reason I might mention it now as well in the summer, all the premium features, tournament coverage like the British Championship later this summer, I think it has been absolutely excellent. The coverage on Chess24 is outstanding for things like the British Championship coming up in August. So it's well worth becoming a premium member. So if you want to challenge me and other streamers, Kingscrusher, Kings is plural by the way, you get 15% off. So there's that to talk about. But also, okay, generally, if there's any questions quickly about today's stuff, any lessons, I think even though I'm tactical, I like to be structurally aware, as you might have noticed. There's always ups and downsides with damaged pawn structure. Sometimes you do get enough piece play. Sometimes you can squash the opponent's piece play and just expose their structural weaknesses. It's good to learn about pawn structures generally and be aware of that higher level thing in the midst of tactics. When you do tactical sequences, the principled moves, I think, shield you from the longer term downsides, like not going to self pins, taking dodgy pawns, taking pawns in general. Sometimes there is a horrible longer term downside to factor in. So okay, so Is C5 good in the Sicilian? C5 is the Sicilian. So, yeah, it's pretty good if you want to play Sicilian. A4 C5 is a good idea. If you, I'm not sure what do you mean? Is C5 good in Sicilian? I think the Sicilian's quite good. Okay. All right. So anyway, have a good rest of the Sunday. See you next week. Yeah, 1 fun, 10 boring. If you want to quickly vote if you thought this was fun and stuff, quickly vote here. That'd be cool. If you want, just quickly vote 1 fun or 10 boring. I hope it wasn't too uninteresting. All right. Thanks very much.